What's up, guys? Brady here, coming at you with another review. This time we're talking the new Poison the Well album, Peace in Place, that dropped last Friday, March 20th. The newest album from these metalcore pioneers is also their first record in 17 years. If you're a fan of Poison the Well, I highly recommend you check out the discography ranking that I just uploaded, where I talk about the band's previous 5 albums. You know, sometimes for me, doing those rankings kind of educates me more about the band's history and their sonic and their stylistic evolution. And something that's been made pretty clear to me after listening to this record is that this might be their best album to date. I'm sure many of you might disagree with me purely on the basis of just maybe some nostalgic attachments to some of those older records, but I'm going to argue that purely on a stylistic and a musical level, this is at least top 2. Right away, it immediately was noticeable to me that the production on here is the best the band has ever sounded. Whereas on their first couple of records, the band sounded very raw. And then on You Come Before You, they sounded a bit more polished and put together. And then on the last 2 records, they kind of went for more of like that stripped down, like post-hardcore style of production. On this record, they managed to do all of that. This is just, it's a great sounding album. For one, that post-hardcore style production is still very present in the parts that invoke that specific subgenre. But at the same time, when the album, a lot of these songs get heavy and aggressive and amplify more of the hardcore or even the metalcore influence, those parts still have the bite to them and they still hit really hard. To me, this album feels like the band took the best parts of all of their past 5 albums and brought them all together. The lead single from this album, Thoroughbreds, I think is a great instance of that because right away I like how the song evolves because you get that kind of chunky, somewhat dissonant intro riff right away that feels a little bit light, but then it comes back at the end of the song and it's played in a lower octave and it sounds just so fucking heavy. It's got like the ringing verses with the really aggressive vocals, and then the chorus is phenomenal. I love those just groaning, like spacey, atmospheric vocals, the clean vocals that contrast so well with those barks, that more typical like hardcore influenced barking style of vocals. It's such a great contrast, and in this day of just having so much like formulaic modern metalcore being so much of what I hear online and just what I have to review a lot of the times, it's really refreshing to see a band and to hear a band like Poison the Well do what they essentially pioneered, but in ways that are still like structurally adventurous and unpredictable and just less formulaic. Another main point I want to make in this review is that just purely in terms of the vocals, this is also their best album yet. Lead vocalist Jeffrey Morera has still a lot of elements in his voice of those early Poison the Well albums, especially when he's kind of singing in his lower register. But at the same time, he's also doing more and kind of different styles and different utilizations of his clean vocals and his screams. He's doing different styles of clean vocals and screams. Like in the track Primal Bloom, I think that's a good instance of both of those points because it starts out right away with, for one, that really hard-hitting chug riff, but also his vocals, they sound a lot more visceral and almost scratchy and throaty, but in a good way, and it sounds a little bit different than usually how his screams sound. And the clean chorus on this song, it amplifies somewhat of an emo influence, which I think, maybe Poison the Well always had a little bit of when it comes to their clean choruses, but it really is pushed a little bit more with this song. Bad Bodies is another serious highlight for me on this record. It's just so groovy the entire time. Just the riffs, first of all, but again, the vocals, there's really aggressive at first, and then the chorus, it brings to mind somewhat of a grunge influence. Again, maybe not super new compared to what Poison the Well has done in the past. They might have always had a little bit of that in those clean vocal parts that they've done. But again, it feels a lot more pushed to the forefront and confidently executed on this song. Drifting Without End, that's another great instance of just the awesome vocal performance on this record. He goes for, on this song, more of a low register, very melodic style at the beginning of this song, and it makes the song come off a lot more moody. And I will say that the kind of instrumental backdrop going on with that song adds to that as well. There's some vocal harmonies that come in on this song I think are great. And the song it has a lot of atmosphere to it, which is another element that's prominent on this record and other spots. But no, with this track, I really like how they commit pretty much fully to having a melodic song, which is not something they always do. This band tends to have elements of heavy and melody like together, which obviously is a staple of metalcore and a lot of post-hardcore. But I like when the band goes for a straightforward, uniform sound all the way through on their songs. I think that's where they're at their best, and I think this song is maybe the best instance of that on this album. Another department of this album that I think the band really stepped up with is the riffing. I've already talked about, like Bad Bodies and Thoroughbreds. Primal Bloom, too, just songs that have a lot of great riffing in it. And there's a bit more of like a thrashy edge to a lot of these guitar riffs. Weeping Tones is another track that does that well. The riffing in this track brings to mind a lot of thrash influence, but also a little bit of like a melodic metalcore influence. The main riff of that track really brings the dissonance, again, which is something that this band always does a good job at. And just to top that song off, it's got a really catchy chorus and a very effective clean guitar break, which, is one of the band's staples at this point, but it kicks back in very effectively. Also, the opener, Wax Mask, feels like good and familiar, just because it starts off the album with some somber, clean vocals, but it kicks into a really hard-hitting, again, like pretty dissonant main riff that I think is awesome. And then what's interesting about this track is that after that heavy start, it transforms into one of those more like twangy post-hardcore style tracks that would have been on the band's last two records. It's a very atmospheric track overall, and same thing with Primal Bloom, the next track, which I already complimented. With this track, I also should shout out just that crushing tempo change at the end. My favorite track on the record, it's hard to say. I think it would be either between Drifting Without End, like I already talked about, or Awake of Vultures is another big highlight for me. It has like these somewhat flamboyant melodies, and the song is very like upbeat overall, but it's oddly upbeat. Like it has like this underlying darkness to it to me, and I love hearing that as a listener. Like it's like this melodic and upbeat song in its nature, but it has like a hint of dissonance to it that gives it this unsettling nature. I absolutely love songs like this that give me that feeling. But even aside from that, like there's some great riffing in the song. There's a groove switch that happens about halfway through that I think is awesome. And then, just for good measure, you have the extended, atmospheric, clean guitar outro that I think is pretty well executed. Everything Hurts is another really creative song in here. Right away with that staticky, bassy intro and the melodic vocals. This song has like it's really angry, vicious, dissonant, screaming parts that work well. But overall, this is one of the more melodic tracks on here. Some of the vocals almost have like a droning quality to them that I think also fits the mood of the song. And on the production front, the clean guitars in this track really, really ring. They sound awesome. And again, I really like the sonic backdrop of this song and just its atmosphere. It's not until the end of the record where the quality starts to dip a little bit. Like the track Melted is fine. I just think having it so late in the record and just the fact that it doesn't present a whole lot of new ideas makes it come off a little bit like filler. Maybe a track that's fine and like enjoyable to listen to on its own, but in the record context and the full album context, just doesn't really hold up. And when I first hit play on Plague Them the Most, my first response was, why the fuck is there a 9.5-minute song on this record? And I was still vibing with it. Like, the eerie, clean guitar intro and those groaning vocals work, but then like it kicks into the heavy parts and then back to the melodic. And I'm just like, I was thinking to myself when I first listened to the song, like, how are they going to stretch this out to be over 9 minutes long? But it's not. And maybe my biggest frustration on this record is that they did the whole ambient or quiet noise taking up a big chunk of the track before throwing in like a secret track at the end. That's something that was very common back in the physical media days of like the early 2000s. A lot of bands were doing that. So the actual song Plague Them the Most is actually pretty good. It's one of the most like up and down dynamic songs on the record, and I like it. And I like the secret track on here. It's like it's almost like this clean guitar straight up ballad. It sounds really good, but I fucking hate how the only way I can listen to these songs together is if I get through 3 minutes of silence. I think this is the only point on the entire record where the band's age shows, because they got to get with the times a little bit. This track, the band stopped doing songs like this because it just doesn't work in the streaming era. And it's really frustrating that you have two good songs that essentially are ruined unless you're listening to the full album in context. I'm not going to add this song to any playlists, which is how the overwhelming majority of people listen to music nowadays. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to sit through 3 or 4 minutes of pure silence to get to that clean guitar ballad at the end, regardless of how good it is. It's a missed opportunity. I wish the band would just split this up into 2 tracks. If they felt so compelled to have that silent break in the middle of these 2 songs, they should have just put some ambient noise in front of that final ballad. Just very, very frustrating. But like, at the end of the day, like, these are still 2 good songs. I just don't like how they're presented. So, I mean, I can't knock them a whole lot for that. And the rest of the album is really fucking good. The band sounds good. They sound confident. They've modernized their sound definitely to some extent here. And they still sound like themselves all at the same time. And if their goal was to create somewhat of like a modernized amalgamation of everything they did on their past 5 albums, I think they did a really great job at that. For all those reasons, I'm going to score this album a 26 out of 30. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to hit the subscribe button for more rock and metal-related content and album reviews. I really appreciate it. Give the video a like because it helps with the algorithm. Comment below what are your thoughts on this album. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.